In this video, we're going to take a look at some of the more common blend modes used in AI and what they actually mean. Okay, so when we talk about blend modes, they're the ways that we combine our different layers of video, whether that be moving image, still image, or camera images, the different ways in which we combine the pixels from the different layers. So if I click actually on the drop down on the layer widget, we can see that we've got loads and loads of types here, and if we actually double left click to bring the layer properties, we should be able to see all of the options available in the menu there, like so. Now you can see that the first large chunk are basically based around single functions, whereas then we turn into things like transitions, so we have them coming from different directions and different angles and the like. Now I'm not going to go through all of the blend mode and transition types in this tutorial, just I'm going to pick out a few key ones and then sort of leave you to explore the rest on your own. Now it's worth remembering that as with all graphics, colour and all that kind of thing is all just numbers when it comes down to the end of the day. So if you think of each pixel as 3 or 4 channels of colour information, so that could be RGB, or if it's got a transparency, it could be RGB A for alpha. We can take those values from those channels and we can apply mathematical functions to combine them. So that's going to take us to our first one, additive mode. So what I'll do before I select that, I'm going to just fade that one down. Fade the top one down, in fact. I'm going to put it onto additive mode, and this is a good opportunity to show you the different images we've got. So this test pattern is on layer 2. And this is layer 1 at the moment. So I'm going to choose additive from the drop down, like so, and what we should see is a combination of the images. So when we go up to full, we'll actually get left with ghosting from both, and you can see that some areas become a little washed out, and it's because it's adding the colour values from both of those images together, and probably, certainly in the case of this white area here, the value is probably in excess of 1. Now in colour we can only represent 0 to 1, so in this case we just get quite a washed out image. Now additive is a very traditional approach to layer mixing. This is the kind of blend mode that you'll find on most traditional video mixers. Okay, so aside from additive, another very popular mode to use is the alpha mode. Now what happens with alpha? So normally with a video, my video is 3 channels, red, green and blue, or depending on your colour profile. Now it's possible to have what's known as a transparency or an alpha channel within your video, and the AIM codec itself supports alpha transparencies. So what is an alpha transparency? So when I create my video, instead of having a solid background, I can leave the background completely empty. The benefits of this is when I play back the video with the correct type of blending mode, in this case alpha, I don't get anything rendered as the background at all, and I get a see-through effect without the components of my layer also being see-through. So I've got this little video here. We can see this is a little white square bouncing backwards and forwards. Now what looks like a black background is actually entirely transparent, and because of the preview in AI we just see it as black. So if I trigger that to the layer, making sure that I've got an additive, in fact let's fade that down. We're going to put it onto alpha. There we go. We'll trigger that clip onto the layer. And then as we fade it in, we'll see that the fade adjusts the intensity of that alpha. So we can see it's starting to fade in, and kind of around there is where it looks a bit like additive, so it's adding those channels together. When we push it up to the full value, there we go, you can see that there is no bleed through from the image in the background. The only areas which are see-through are the areas in the video that I've specified. So you might be asking yourself, well, what use is this? So a few really common uses of alpha channels. If you think to any television program, think of very popular music channels on satellite television. quite often they will have a little logo, a channel logo, in the corner of the screen, seemingly a very solid object which sits over the top and you can't see bleed through from the other layers. So that's an alpha channel. I commonly use them as well when I'm working with company logos and I want to just make sure again that it doesn't mix strangely with the layers below and ruin their very expensive company logo. Okay, so another really common one that we use a lot are wipes. So what we've seen up to now are ways of combining the pixel colours. Now a wipe is generally an action which it will either go from left to right, top to bottom, right to left, bottom to top, or along a gradient, and it will slowly reveal the layer below it rather than mixing between the layer modes. And so just to give you an idea of what I'm meaning there, if I go down to one of the slide transitions, as I bring that down you should see, there we go, so it actually pushes it off. So it's not combining the two images at all, it's just forming a wipe in or a wipe out based on some predetermined parameters. Let's try this spread one here as well. So again you can see that it's at no point is it actually combining those images together. We're just seeing a hard edge between one or the other. So we've also got luma keying is a very useful method for combining your layers. If ever you've seen a film, they often do what's called green or blue screening. So the idea is that you film with a specific colour background, one which is not being used on any of the scenic elements or characters, and then you can actually tell the system to specifically exclude that colour. Now that in itself is called chroma keying, but a more common one for sort of live use is luma keying. And it's exactly the same principle, but it will either take out the dark elements first or the light elements first, depending whether you're using a standard luma or an inverted luma. So again, what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring the layer up first, we'll go on to a luma mode, and you'll see that anything which is above this threshold that I set here is allowed to pass. So the further I go down, the more of our image is revealed, like so. And if I just flip into the invert luma version of that as well, so this should be an inverse version. There we go. So on this one, anything below that layer, that level, is allowed to pass through. So it's a bit like chroma keying, but it can be quite useful if you've got a lot of clips which have maybe black or dark backgrounds. So as I mentioned, there are a lot of different blend modes in here. The first chunk are specific to blending layers together, then the second section from sort of circle downwards, they're all based around transitions and shapes. You can of course make your own blend modes as well, don't forget that. If you do want to make your own blend modes, the easiest way to do it, if you go to File and Open, then within your installation folder, in the Distrib folder, we're going to go to Modules, Effects, and then Blend Modes. And then what I normally do is I normally open up my initial blend mode, or one that's there, and I work within that framework. So we can see here that the basics of any of the blend modes are they have two inputs, so that'd be one for the current layer and one for the layers below it, and a parameter with a controllable value, and this is actually what will get controlled by this layer fader here, and that will generally connect to the mix input or the level of your specific blend mode. So dive in with blend modes and get your hands dirty. You can have up to 256 blend modes per installation, so that gives you a huge amount of scope to make very specialized blend modes. You could embed masks into them, you could have special color operations, really whatever you want to do at all.